photographers can bring images of the world into our consciousness.
Taking pictures really made me slow down and look at the world in a really different way.
A photographer is enthusiastic about something, even if it sounds kind of crazy, people might just go for it.
Photojournalism is very engaged with the human condition.
I find with, especially documentary photography, I'm not the judge, I'm not a jury, I'm just there to sort of see.
It can be something that's, a real thing. It can also be something that's completely constructed and staged and fake. And sometimes we don't know when we look at an image where it sits.
The more I've been doing this, the more I realize that how incredibly fragmented really photography is, There's photojournalists, there's documentary photographers, portrait photographers, wedding photographers, sports photographers, news photographers.
Even within photojournalism, there are different kinds of images and different lengths of narrative. So you might have a single spot news image, and spot news means arriving on the scene and taking something like, say, to pick something extreme, a bombing.
I got started once I graduated by working with a group of young artists. We formed a collective. We just started doing our own projects, finding spaces to show our work, and eventually we started getting some grants, and I was offered my first solo exhibition.
I think if I had any idea, if I really conceived of how technical photography was, I probably wouldn't have gone into it. This is a picture I took when I was a student at Ryerson. This is an assignment doing still life, I guess, involving food or something. And I did drink the bottle of tequila as well. I started shooting all automatic, and then kind of added one element I controlled, and then everything else was automatic, and then I added one other element, and then there was just one thing left automatic. So I kind of eased into going fully manual sort of slowly as I kind of learned everything. I'm still learning, but I'm pretty good at lighting now. But it took me a good 10 years to really feel confident with lighting, because it's kind of hard.
Photojournalism can be a lot, it's like working in film, well, it's not at all, but in that you wait around a long time, or like being a fireman maybe. Your equipment's always cleaned and charged and ready to go, and it's like soldiers going to bed with their boots on. And in order to be there for a news event, a real life event, it takes a lot of time.
I know a journalist, and he was coming back from every shoot with 3,000 to 4,000 frames. So when I told him I was coming back with 200, he was going, "Really? That's it?" There's no way you can create a comprehensive view of any human activity. And I've done, industry and mining and quarrying and recycling industries, and it's always like slicing a section of it out to represent a larger idea about human activity and how we engage.
A novelist will use characters to sort of, further their idea of what they want to talk about in this novel. The same thing with me, I just need to sort of find these sort of moments or these characters or these situations or places, and then when you sort of put it all together in book form or exhibition form or whatever form, then you can communicate something.
What I'm trying to do with every project is clarify a set of questions, and then from there I start making pictures, like whether I stage those pictures or whether I find materials that exist and respond to them and recontextualize them in a different way.
I like surprises and vulnerability. I like when someone seems like they're a little bit open, I do like when there's a sense of you don't know exactly what's kind of happening in the picture.
Working in a conflict zone is, as you can imagine, extremely dangerous. If you want to photograph something that's remote, or if you want to photograph a city under siege, of course you're going to be putting yourself at risk. In some situations, you might find that you're you or maybe and a few other people might be the only photographers there while something important is happening. And yeah, it might be dangerous to do, but you realize because of the situation, if I don't do it, no one will.
I've been working a lot from the air in the last 5 years of my work. I prefer working with a helicopter and with the door off. The chopper allows you to kind of use the whole field and swing back and forth in your composition while you're trying to frame the subject. So you can see what a full-size ship is presenting as. And then you see the drilling rig, which is like at least 4 times bigger than a regular ship. So those 2 ships in the scene were really important to have because it gives one a sense of scale. I look at my work as a kind of a way to meditate upon, human beings as this kind of rogue species on the planet, just taking over and reshaping it to our ideas, to our image, to our benefit.
This work is practically 10 years old now, and you can see, I was printing contact sheets and, playing with this $30 toy camera, which I still love. Because this camera was flawed, light leaks would come in. These kinds of flaws, talked about the difficulty with remembering and connecting with memories. In our minds, we tend to focus on special moments and they have this kind of resonance. But if we really think about them and go back there, it wasn't like that.
I'm interested in discussing something or seeing something, and I think that's kind of also how that interrogations work came, because it is so stripped down, It just becomes about the humanity or the empathy that you can exude out of your subject. When I was photographing them and just being in that space, being in that room and looking at them in the eye, and you can sort of see their face and their recognition. This is sort of the absolute truth.
I think there's still among some people a resistance to say send a woman to a war zone. These particular photos of Iraqi detainees, to me it was real, but there was something surreal, and of course I had this feeling in my stomach. I mean, it was a very difficult, uncomfortable scenario, but I knew that I had to take pictures of it. As soon as I took the photographs, I filed them back to my agency in New York at the time. I mean, I sat up all night in the desert with my satellite transmitter and filed these images back, and the pictures didn't get published. Like, no one picked them up. 5 months later, Abu Ghraib broke, and these pictures got pretty widely published.
I shoot a lot of very famous people sometimes. When I shot Chris Farley, obviously he was a really funny comedian. So a couple years later, he dies in a way that is kind of tragic, and I found these pictures and I was like, wow, this kind of really is amazingly like him. Like, amazingly tells his story with the crown, like how he's kind of this sort of sad kind of man on top of the world. I guess it's always my way to try to do something a little bit quieter or darker or maybe more vulnerable.
Something like 80% of the newspapers in the United States have closed down over the last few years. So a lot of those photographers, like myself, end up doing more assignment work or commercial work.
I'm on assignment right now for Maclean's Magazine, photography, the newly elected mayor, Rob Ford.
I'm always going to have to do assignments because I need to make a living. But that wasn't sort of the goal or the focus of my career. My goal was to do the stories that I wanted to do. So Chernobyl was kind of, I would say, my first transitional project, making a significant body of work. And, having the assignments just allow me to be able to do what it is that I wanted to do.
If an advertising agency is hiring me, they can want 95% the agency and 5% Chris Buck, and I'm okay with that because they're paying me appropriately for it.
For me, I thought if I started becoming a commercial photographer, it would be very hard for me to keep my own work separate and exciting and vital if I'm shooting all day long for other people. I just didn't want to mix it up. So I decided that a lab would be a very interesting alternative to that. I started a business at Toronto ImageWorks to actually produce my own work and to help smooth out the bumps in terms of a steady income.
I'm a teacher. I teach at Ryerson University. I teach photography. I'm fortunate enough to get grants sometimes from various councils. I sell some of my work.
As a photographer, you're essentially independent, and you kind of can drive your own career forward.
I just keep going. Like if someone says, you can't do this, it's impossible, either you do it anyways, or if those people are not going to give you a job, you find your own way.
I sometimes am walking down the street in Siberia or something, and I go, kind of click, and I say, wait a second, I'm walking down, some abandoned street in the middle of the exclusion zone of Chernobyl. Like, this is not proper. This is not the way I should be leading my life. And then I get kind of excited. I go, exactly, that's why I like it.